Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Good evening, and thank you for tuning in here with us via Facebook Live or our YouTube channel for our 2021 Power Players Black Mothers on the Move in Memphis event. I am Ashley Hafford, President of Memphis Urban League Young Professionals. With this being a month of honoring and acknowledging mothers, our Civic Engagement and Advocacy Committee, led by Dominique DeFries and Raina Henderson, knew it was important, especially now, to honor and highlight dynamic Black women who are serving and empowering the Memphis community. We're so excited to have this amazing panel here today with us, featuring Black queens who range from titles from the consultant, the founder, the chief, and the innovator, but all who share one title above the reigns of others, that of being a Black mother. When I think of Black mothers now, my mind instantly goes to our brother George Floyd, who a year ago today was murdered by a white cop in Minneapolis. I can still hear him calling out for his mother, a call that makes me cling to and appreciate mine so much more. A call that we here in Memphis Urban League and Memphis Urban League Young Professionals will never forget and will always allow us to fuel our programming, events, and initiatives such as this, where we highlight and honor and continue to protect and serve our Black mothers. So again, thank you to all of you for tuning in with us. And at this time, I will introduce our moderator. So our moderator for this evening is Asha Emmanuel, who is an entrepreneur with a passion for strategic marketing. With an educational and professional background in advertising, marketing, and digital strategies, she developed Emmanuel Consulting, which focuses on connecting small businesses to their ideal audience through social media and digital strategy. Asha works with various local businesses within a variety of industries, from media to health and wellness, and she touches each facet of Memphis. Outside of business, Asha lends her marketing expertise to the Memphis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, where she serves as the chapter journalist, and Memphis Urban League Young Professionals, where she serves as the vice president of marketing and sponsorships. When Asha's not planning marketing campaigns or engaged with the community work, she spends free time with her husband, Tarek, and their two children, Akeem and Khalila. And Asha and I share a very, very special bond. Asha's one of my very, very best and closest friends. And so I'm so blessed and honored to not only have her as a partner in crime here at MULYP, but to have her as our moderator for the evening. So thank you so much, Asha, for joining with us. And without further ado.
Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much, Ashley. That was a great introduction. I really appreciate it. So let me start by saying welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us for Memphis Urban League Young Professionals Power Players, Black Mothers on the Move in Memphis. We are excited to have you here. And I, for one, cannot wait to get into this conversation. So first, we will introduce our panelists. So first off, we have the Chief, Danielle Inez, who leads as the Chief of Staff to Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris. Danielle has spearheaded her own marketing firm, led TED Talks, achieved Memphis Flyers Top 20 Under 30, and Memphis Business Journal's Top 40 Under 40. Plus, she is the mom of Joseph and her golden doodle, Malcolm X. I love that name. Just going to throw that out there. Next, we have the innovator, Audrey Willis. She sits as the manager of innovation and performance analysis for Shelby County government. Audrey has served as an entrepreneur, serves on the executive board as VP of Light Memphis, STS Enterprise, and Code Crew. She's gained global recognition from BBC in their 100 Women docuseries and named among the top 185 women in tech to follow. She's mom of two, Cameron and Timothy. Last but absolutely certainly not least is the founder, Ruby Powell Dennis. She is the founder and executive director of Elect Black Women Political Action Committee. Ruby has served as campaign manager, led trainings as national deputy director of the Leaders of Color Initiative at Education Reform Now, plus ran her own race as a candidate in 2020. Come on, sis. She is now, or not now, but she is the mom of two beauties, Ariana and August. So thank you so much, ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our panel discussion.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
I know. So let me just, I guess, hop right into things, right? So if you could kind of go around, I know I've given all of your high stats, right? But we are absolutely here because all of you are mothers who are doing phenomenal, amazing work within the Memphis community and everything else. So first and foremost, can you tell us how old your babies are?
So I guess I'll start with that. My babies aren't all babies anymore. I have a one that'll be 21 in July and a 5-year-old.
Well, you've given us the gambit, right? For sure.
Yeah, I'll jump in. August, so my oldest is Ariana is 4. She'll be 5 a little bit later this year. And my son August is 2. He won't be 3 until next year. So they're still pretty little.
All right, and I'm having a couple of connection issues, so let me know if there's a delay. But I have a 6-year-old Joseph, and he'll be 7 in October.
Oh, okay. I love it. My children are 5 and 3. So I kind of feel like a play date should be around here at some point.
Well, I don't know. My kids have been indoors during COVID, so I feel like the adjustment coming out is a little,
Might be a little jarring.
Like a professional soccer player. Anything that touches him, he kind of hits the ground. So I just warn everybody. But yeah, definitely play dates. It sounds almost like a privilege and a treat coming out of COVID. So that'd be nice. That sounds fun.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's definitely jump into why we all have you here today. So our first question is, what kind of drew you guys to working in the public sector? Let's start with you, Ruby.
Yeah, sure. I would say, it was definitely a family trait. So I grew up in a small town in rural Louisiana, not too far from New Orleans. Women in my family have just a long history of being public servants and serving in a variety of ways. Like I had a cousin who's run for mayor recently of my hometown, with the hope of being the first Black woman to serve as mayor. And so, for me, it was, I'm a descendant of the Deacons of Defense. And so growing up, civil rights, being engaged, it was something that was a routine part of like dinner conversations, family conversations, but also just Black women being very candid about like, what is the role that Black women actually played, right? And so whether it is organizing through the church, because there's a lot of ways you can organize, right? So I took it for granted how the women in my family and in the community around me, when school wasn't in, because most of them were teachers, because that was the profession that Black women went into, unless you were like a domestic worker, because my parents were older, they made sure that we had a robust education all summer, through Vacation Bible School. And so Summer Slide and some of these things that, they knew, they made sure that we were taken care of. And so I just saw it, firsthand how, you could come take care of your family, but, you still have an accountability to the community around you, especially when you think about, all the systemic issues that we talk so openly about now. Folks talked about it a little bit differently, at least when I was younger. So for me, it was definitely the women in my family. I have 19 women in my immediate family, 4 generations of college graduates, which I did not know was unique until I grew up and got grown. But, I'm very thankful that I have Black women who are strong role models, who my entire life have been telling me, you can do anything you want to do, but just make sure that you're always serving your community, because what good is it for you to personally benefit if the people around you are suffering, especially if they look and have experiences like yours.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And I'm sure that also led you to founding Elect Black Women.
Yeah, women in my family have a tendency to, lead and run successful organizations and business. I don't have any brothers. And so, there was no expectations around things holding you back. And so I'm very thankful that I have very smart sisters. Like my older sister takes companies public on the stock exchange. And so I ain't good as they. I'm not as good as my siblings, but I've been very thankful that just the support I built here locally, the community I built here locally, enabled me to take my campaign experience and use it to help other Black women. So at a minimum, again, to what I shared about my own experience, at least women who are running for office, Black women don't have to start from zero. And I mean, we'll get into the conversation around why that's just challenging in general for Democratic politics, but I'll hold that one for maybe later in our conversation.
Definitely hold that one, because we want to talk about it for sure. We want to talk about it for sure. Danielle, do you want to give us what drew you to the public sector?
I'll try.
Okay.
It's rough right now over here, you guys. I came up to the office for internet stability, and I don't know why I did that. But so Mayor Lee Harris, when he was running for county government, I appreciated working with him, and I knew he'd be great in government. I always say that it's very unlikely that I would work for another official in this way. And that's not necessarily true. Along my path working with him, I've had an opportunity to grow closer with some officials who do have the right heart and spirit for work that's really going to benefit the public.
Uh-oh. I think Danielle, you've gotten away from us. Uh-oh.
Would you like for me to go ahead and
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll let Audrey chime in.
So my name is Audrey Willis, and apparently I need to update my my bio because since I've left Shelby County government and I actually function to support the CIO for FedEx supply chain. So I've actually gone back to the private industry. But what drew me to the public sector as I was functioning as the manager of innovation and performance analytics for Shelby County, mainly because I am a technologist to heart in terms of data, ETL development, things like that. So it was sort of a natural fit. But because of the work that I did with Shelby County government, I got poached. You don't find too many individuals that conquer data in a general sense. Then when you shrink it down to African American, then you shrink it down again to women, and organizations have quotas to fill. They come looking for you. And so not necessarily that was the case with FedEx, but you get poached for positions like that. And so I left the county and came to FedEx. And so I work in supply chain. But I mean, just the opportunity to be able to go in, and I did a lot of work. There's actually a case study going to be put out in Medium soon about a lot of the work that I did with Shelby County with innovation data during the COVID epidemic. So pandemic, not epidemic, pandemic.
Wow, yes, you have to update your bio so we can all know everywhere that you go, because we need to know every step of your life. Audrey, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But that's fantastic though. I mean, it's fantastic you being able to pivot like that because you were at AutoZone at one point before as well, right? So being able to pivot from private to government and help the Memphis community and kind of all those facets, that's phenomenal. Did being a mother or a family at all play a role in the change?
It's always tricky. And I say it's tricky because you have to know your audience when you're a mother. If you're around majority women, they kind of empathize on the situation. Like I said, I'm a technologist. So when you're around a majority male situation, you have to watch and mind your words because there are assumptions that are being made. If the first one is always as a Black woman and you say I have a child, but at some point in my life, I wasn't married. My first son is from a previous marriage. And I have to frame it as that. It's a son from a previous marriage because they like to make assumptions. Oh, that's a baby daddy. And then they, the trickle down of assumptions begin to happen. Oh, you must be from this economic bracket, or, they make those assumptions. So not difficult, but it's always, you're on a swivel. To know your audience, to know who you're talking to know how to frame discussions about your parenting, to know how to push back when, my parenting is taking priority over this. And then versus I can put my parenting on the side to be able to go on a trip, go to a conference, go to training, things like that. So it's always this kind of song and dance of going back and forth to kind of carve out what you want your transitions or your pivots to be.
Wow, that's really interesting. You already kind of touched on another question that we had later on, which was, have you experienced any, discrimination or marginalization because of the fact that you are a mother, a Black mother, within business, or within the organization? What about you, Ruby? Have you experienced any of that?
Well, it's one of those things where at the highest levels, we live in a capitalist society. And a capitalist society is like, hey, what can you do for, the system, the entity, whatever you work for? And so to what Audrey mentioned, when I was a single woman and moving through the world, because I had my children later in life, there were considerations I just didn't have, right? It was like me that I had to think about. And so once I became a parent, it made me a much more empathetic leader, right? I called a bunch of women and I apologized. I was like, you know what? Wow. I did not make that easy, right? Because I'd been a manager. I'd done a lot of things. So there was a lot that I had to better understand. Like I better understood once I became a parent. But in terms of discrimination, even that conversation is tricky, right? Because you still live in America, right? And so if every time somebody did something that wasn't right, I wouldn't have a career, because Kimberly Crenshaw, years ago talked about intersectionality as a legal construct, just because we need actual legal verbiage that better describes our existence. And so conversations like this are really important because even again, if we were talking about in the context of discrimination, like, well, what does that mean for a Black woman in America, right? Like, so I say all that to say, it made me a more empathetic leader. When I walk into spaces, I take up space because I have gotten to a point. Someone told me today, you're finally over the hill. And I had to Google it. And I was like, oh, shoot, I guess I am. I was like, that came quick. I was like, oh. But, I've gotten to a point in my career where I'm no longer having a conversation about, do I have the tactical skills to do the work? It's about, hey, if you don't like my apples, don't shake my tree. But if I'm going to show up in a place, right, I have to take up space and show other Black women, particularly Black women who are single, who may not have as much agency, who may not have as loud of a voice, whatever that might be, I have to do it also for them. And so, that whole conversation about discrimination gets tricky. Again, intersectionality, if folks aren't familiar with it, please look it up. But I mean, you're just always pressed as a parent because you're having to decide, well, when is the best doctor's appointment? So it doesn't conflict with this project deadline that cannot be moved, because you just get to a point again, the further along in your career, people depend on you to deliver things. You have to deliver those things. And as a parent, you just have to pick jobs, careers, and spaces that, you have to do both. You can't, your kids should never become an excuse. They don't, you don't want to be that person, right? Because we work with that person where you're like, oh, it feels like it's always an excuse, work can't get done. Right. But on the other side, I tell everybody, have children, build your family when you're ready for your family to take center stage. Because when it comes time to set those boundaries, it is going to be hard. And so you got to be able to sit in it, have the conversation. But there's a lot of things that, you got to pick the jobs you work on when you start having a family and you start to really try to make sure like, hey, I'm present for my children. Again, I'm not going to speak to anyone else's parenting style, but I like to be present for my children.
Right.
And so, I think about all of that before I say yes to a project, even a volunteer project.
No, that's absolutely phenomenal advice. I love that. If you don't like my apples, don't shake my tree.
Listen.
I'm a Wizard of Oz fan, and that just like really hit me home.
Because you're like, because what Audrey said, I speak this over every Black woman professionally. May you get to a place where you receive headhunter emails every week, where people are always asking, "Are you happy?" Where you can walk in and know that you can drive that salary cap up $25K and you want your money up front with the taxes paid out, right? Because you don't want to get hit with that tax bill on the end.
Yes.
Listen, these are grown lady problems, So, when you step into that space and that place, the responsibility, you just have to be real because otherwise it'll break you. You can suffer from burnout and then you're no good to anybody.
I have a question kind of for both of you. With both of you being in your careers for such a length of time, like you said, you have that that clout or that stance now to be able to ask for what you need to be able to get the job done and everything. When do you think you got to that point? And do you think that having children helped you get there at all, or if there was a wait to get there because you had children? Like, just wondering how that balance might work or not work.
So mine most certainly did not come with childbearing. Mine came more so with maturity and being okay with who I was and where I was in my career, and like with my heels in the sand, saying, I know my worth, I know my value, I know what I want, I'm secure in that. And the imposter syndrome was turned down and I could move through it. But I mean, like I said, my oldest son is 21. So I've essentially been a mother my entire adult life. Mm-hmm. I got married very young. So motherhood wasn't the variable that changed that. I think growth and Audrey knowing her skill set, knowing what I was worth, and being able to demand things, and knowing what my counterparts were able to demand and get those things, I was able to shift.
Yeah, there's definitely a self-actualization piece of it, where, you have to just know who you are. You're not pretending to be somebody else. You're not, and you work hard. So I'm gonna give Audrey her flowers. She works hard. She is smart. She, she everything she says, the bio is true. Because that's the other part of it, right? People, you like to shine, but you gotta like the grind. Because I'm sure Audrey,
Come
can
on,
tell
you giving
that
us all these quotes. We need to take that.
I'm from Louisiana. We talking parables. But Audrey, they yell they're worth, it's not like it's a question about how they got there, and I think that that's also part of it, right? You have to both believe in yourself, constantly put in the hard work, because it's not like, okay, I did that one project, now I'm awesome. It's like, it's an everyday, like, what have you done for me lately? And so it's like the combination of those things allows you to constantly create space. Because, to what Audrey mentioned, if she wasn't curious about, well, what kind of treatment supports resources are my colleagues getting? And feeling like she deserved better, especially given her industry, that wouldn't happen. You know, a lot of times I feel like, you know, one of the things I coach Black women around, particularly Black women in their 20s, is stop thinking you're going to work so hard. Somebody's going to think you're so awesome and stick a badge on you and promote you to managing director. It's like, nah, sis, how they know that you want that? Maybe you don't want that, you know? And so the worst thing in the world is to also be a high performer who keeps getting projects dumped on them, right? Because nobody wants to be that person where you do everything so good that, you know, your no becomes like, oh, you must not like me since you're doing all this for everybody else, you know? So I say all that to say, like, how, you know, at least how I knew I got there was a person could give me a project and I could ramp that project up in a matter of weeks or days, depending on, and at a point in my career, it might've taken me months or years. And, you know, if you know your own growth in your industry, you're about your business on your skills and deliverables, then I think it makes those other conversations tremendously easier. At least that's been my experience.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's really, really, really good work. I mean, especially getting Black women to think about, you know, what they do and how well they do it, and not being the one to say, okay, just give me all the work and hopefully somebody sees that I'm great, but telling them that you're ready for this next level. And, you know. Well,
I think part of it is, in linking this back to being a mother, you're setting an example for your children. So as raising my child, I don't want him, and I have 2 sons, so the dynamic's a little bit different. I want him to see what he aspires in a spouse, maybe what he will aspire or do for his own self. So I'm not going to come home and complain about work or complain about things or put things in a perspective so it sugarcoats things for him. I'm going to tell him exactly what's going on. I'm going to explain how do I get out of these situations. I'm going to set it up and frame it so that he has an understanding, because the kids are watching. I mean, when we went to virtual work, kids did not realize that we actually did work from 8 to 5. I think we assumed that we went off somewhere and we packed lunch and we, you know, sat down with our colleagues and we came home and did their errands with them. Children saw firsthand that mommy works, mommy takes calls all day. You know, these are the things that are happening. So when I came home, my children saw that. And so they learned, you know, about being patient and all those types of things from me being in a virtual working environment. So it's always, the kids are watching. It's always, what are they going to perceive from this situation? What are their expectations going to be when they become adults in the workforce?
No, that is a really great point. My children, like I said, they're 5 and 3, and they had that very same reaction, like, oh, mommy's in another meeting, you have another meeting. Mommy, you have meetings all day. You know, and like you said, there wasn't the realization beforehand, for sure. Well, we have Danielle back with some great internet. It looks like we see you clearly. We are ready to get you in this talk.
I am back, you guys. And look, I can actually add to that last one because I'm dealing with a comedic phase with my 6-year-old where he is very anti-hard work. And so he used to want to be a store manager, and he didn't know what a store manager was. And then he wanted to be an owner, and he didn't know what he wanted to own. And he went to school for career day. He wanted to be a project manager, and he came home and he wanted to be the luggage, I don't know what the title was, but the luggage person to get the luggage off of the belt in his mind. And the story behind that is he had to meet me at the airport. His dad dropped him off at the airport during the transition when I was coming back home. And he helped me find my luggage on the belt. And that brought him so much joy, helping me find that luggage. So he went to school as a project manager and came home with some nonsense. And I was like, what is this? And he says, I don't work hard. That's too hard. And he is seeing hard work, and he is seeing, you know, real dedication. And you might get a call on a weekend that you have to respond to and deal with and everything is important. And so now we're over here trying to navigate like, well, you can have like a competitive career and you might not have to work that hard as long as we're pretty strategic about which path you go down. So it's so funny because I'm having to find myself like, I don't want to seem like my work is too hard because my baby is like, you won't get me. I won't be doing that for a lifetime. So it is funny to me.
That's funny. I think it's also funny and interesting that children pick careers or look at things that are enjoyable to them, you know, and as you grow up and as you become an adult, sometimes you get away from the enjoyable career, you know, and wind up kind of miserable. So maybe we need to look to these babies a little harder.
Look, one thing
I
you
don't
didn't
know
hear me
about
say
carrying
just now.
luggage though.
No. Well, I explained to him that won't be that fun. That might be fun for a second, but that's gonna get real quick. But you didn't hear me say that there's anything wrong with his belief that he should do something that brings him great joy and that's fun and rewarding for him. To me, I think that's important. And so he is spot on when he's like, I don't want to work hard and I don't want to do all that. I want my weekends. And I do too, baby. I want them too. So I get it.
That reminds me of a meme that I saw recently where it's like some woman, I think it's like a TikTok video sound where they say, tell me what your ideal job is. And it's like, I would never dream of having a job. I want to work. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like I've never dreamed of work. Like,
oh yeah, I saw that. I don't dream of work.
I don't dream of work. It's like a TikTok sound, you know, and people replicate it. I do not dream of labor. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna get back to the questions. Getting back to the questions here. Well, Danielle, you kind of dropped out for us a little bit in the beginning when we had this question, but we would love to hear your response to it. What drew you to the public sector? I know you talked about being under Mayor Harris, but was there anything else what drew him to you, I guess, or his leadership?
Exactly, and that's what I was trying to get into. So I dream of being broadly impactful, and so I'm lucky that his perspective is very similar. A lot of people get into elected office, and they have all different types of motivations. I won't dissect them today, but I believe that it is very rare that people truly get into public office saying, what can I do to make a difference? And if that makes some people uncomfortable along the way, so be it. If that pisses off my donors along the way and they never donate to another campaign, so be it. But while I'm in this elected office and I have this opportunity, I'm going to try to make a difference. And so the stars aligned for me by connecting with somebody like that who is motivated in the same way that I am, where it's like, I might piss some folks off, but you know what? Folks have been struggling with COVID and we're going to try to make this life a little bit easier for them. And that's just most recent examples of some of the programs that we did over the last year. But really, that's the perspective that we had when we campaigned. And that's the perspective that I get to bring into the office every day. Secretly, and I hope you guys do it too, now that I mentioned this, I periodically go to his campaign website because I start to feel like we are off track from the things that we committed to and said that we want to work towards. And I'll visit the campaign website and I'll look at that so-called platform that we ran on. It's like, we aren't talking about any of these issues. We need to get back to that. That's why we're here. We have big posters down our hallway that capture a lot of our goals that we have for the community, and that you can't miss them. It's borderline tacky. It's tacky. But have them so that it remains top of mind for us. And it should always be centered to the work that we do every day. So that's why I'm there. I won't always be in government. That's not what I was called to do. But right now, the leader that I'm working for aligns with some of the purpose that I feel in my heart for what I should be doing on a day-to-day basis.
I think that's so important and so powerful to make sure that you are serving the people in the way you said you would, right? So many times we see leaders that don't do that. And I know just from Ruby's website of Elect Black Women, it's like that's one of the things for sure that we want to get Black women in front of and in these political positions, because we have such a rampant example in our communities of people saying they're going to do something and not doing it at all. So I absolutely appreciate that there's someone in the staff that is like, hey, let's go back to what we said, because we need to do that, right?
Mhm.
So this is a question for all of you again. How do you balance, right? So that's like the age-old question that every mother, every working mother, every public facing mother gets. How do you balance? What's your self-care? Like, how does that work? Can we start with you, Audrey?
Oh, there is no balance. It's that work-life balance. I heard a woman speak, and she referred to it as a work-life flow. You flow through what you can handle at that time. You learn to not stress out about things when you miss them. Being a woman and in business or government or private industry, you get that burden of, I'm going to miss the first step. I'm going to miss, the first day of school. You have to come into terms very quickly that you can't see all the firsts that are going to happen. And so what I've managed to do is to value my time above all things. If I'm doing things and it's a great use of my time, then I'm 100% committed to it. But if it pans out to not be, I will stop it quickly. I've dropped off boards, stopped volunteer work, because it was not a great usage of my time. Me being at home, being a mother, being a wife is a valuable usage of my time. And so if things take away from that, I push back very quickly. So my encouragement is find your flow, bite off what you can, and embrace that. You can't be all things all the time. I mean, one thing we were talking about before we got on was I got a housekeeper. I think all of my mothers and aunts are fabulous. They are wonderful women. They keep pristine homes. And one day I remember we were sitting in the kitchen having a hen talk, and I posed a question like, how do y'all do this? I mean, you stay beautiful, you're amazing at your careers, and the house is always clean. And every one of them looked at me and was like, we got a housekeeper, don't you? And I was thinking, nobody told me, wait a minute, I'm stressed out and trying to, carve in time to do things like clean up. And the way it was posed to me was, if it gives you portions of your time back, what's that worth to you? And immediately I said, it is worth it to me to hire somebody to come in here and clean this house so I can spend that time with my child and my family. So, I mean, you got to figure out what your flow is.
Wow, I absolutely love that. I loved that earlier when we talked about it. Because nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you to get you some help.
Yeah.
Get you some help.
Outsource it. If it can be outsourced, outsource it. I get groceries delivered, and I was doing grocery delivery before COVID struck. I find it a bad use of my time when I get off from work or, pick up from school or whatever. We have to go spend an hour and a half in a grocery store to figure out what we're going to cook for dinner, meaning I could have had that hour and a half of my life back in the groceries on the step when I get there. So, you find things like that and you take advantage of where you can get your time back.
I love that. I love
Audrey
that.
is preaching. So I get teased because sometimes my grocery orders are wrong. They'll leave out important stuff. And I say, even with my order wrong, it is still worth it to get my groceries delivered. And I think I'm probably on year 3 of getting grocery delivery. For me, it just came down to me being tired of pushing, at the time, my very small son around in that big car cart. So I ain't got time. And so I stopped doing it and switched to something that was better for me. I would say, though, that for me, when it came to balance, I just decided that I wasn't going to make balancing optional. It was something that I was definitely going to do. So my life is pretty balanced. There are very few things that I would consider emergencies in the work that I do. And I think that's shocking to people, because if it has to be responsive to the mayor, or if it has to be responsive to the CAO, it must be an emergency. it doesn't take that long for either the CAO or the mayor to realize she's right. We can't do anything about this until tomorrow at 9. So there's no point in calling or texting her this weekend or calling or texting her after 6 o'clock this evening. I want to be with my family and she wants to be with her family too. And we share that desire. Our CAO loves to golf. He's like, you're right, I can golf. I can have this very important job. Golf. The mayor has small kids just like me. He wants to spend time with his kids. He wants to spend time with his wife. And so it's not optional for me. I go into work. I work very, very hard while I'm present. But when I'm not present, I'm on my time. And if it didn't work, if I worked in an environment where that wasn't the culture, I just being frank, I would not work for that long. And so I recognize that there are some cultures that it is, hustle and bustle and everything is 911 emergency and we're going to work because that's what we are aspiring to do. I can't make it make sense. I can't figure out why I would do that. And so I don't do that. So that's it.
No, that's a great point. And something similar to what Ruby talked about a little bit earlier is, you saying that the mayor has children as well, like you being a parent allows you to be more empathetic to others in their homes and their families as well. So that's a really great point that transcends, obviously.
Let me give because you said that really, really quick. In our first year in the administration, I did receive something that was a 911 emergency that we had to respond to for the county commissioners. And I reached out to a staff member in our purchasing office, and I needed her help solving a problem. And it was going to take her a while. And I said, okay, well, girl, I got to get home to my baby. And she sighs and she says, I would love to get home to my baby too. I said, you know what, sis? I'm about to stay up here. And that's what I stayed up there because I'm like, there's no way that I should use the benefit of my authority and the position that I'm in to leave her up here working on this. Y'all, I didn't have anything to do with the work she needed to do, but it was the fact that it did truly need to be done. And I thought it was inappropriate for me to act like me getting home to my family was more important than her getting home to hers. And so I stayed up there just twiddling my thumbs until she was done, and then we went home. And so I think sometimes empathy has to go to a level where you also have to take on some of the sacrifice that you're expecting other people to take on too. And if you're not willing to take on that sacrifice, then you shouldn't have those types of expectations.
Yes, I love that. Wow, I love that. I love that a lot. Ruby, tell us about your balance.
Well, your no's have to mean no. That's a big one. There's just like a certain point, and that's really challenging. So we're definitely in startup phase. EBW will be a year old in August. We're up to almost 40 endorsed women because Black women all over the South are reaching out, which because women won't help. I'm thankful for it. But, there is a point where it's like, I know your election day might be X, but we can't expedite our endorsement process, because that means that all the people who are a part of that then have to stay up, have to prep, they're away from their families. And if we start doing that for every candidate, right, like we are 18 months from the midterms, and so we would be burnt out, right? Because every woman who's running is important. And so for me, my no's mean no. If I say no, that means I've really thought about like, okay, well, what are all the ways we could make this work? Sometimes the answer has to be no. And I think as a mother and as a leader, you just have to be okay with that. You have to just know that, when you say no, that means you're saying yes to something else. And there are times where, again, you don't want the responsibility, the accountability that comes with it. You have to honor that because you can't always put everything off. But you do have to, make sure that if you say you're going to do something, definitely do it. And if something changes, let people know. But your no has to mean no. And so there are definitely moments where I'm like, hey, this will be too much of a stretch for our team. The juice is not worth the squeeze, or the project is not going to be worth the cost, the woman hours, et cetera. And so, no means no. And then the last thing is, my children are small. And so there was a point where, they're so small, they don't know if you're home late, you can kind of sneak in. And then I just made a choice like, you know what, COVID is, let me know that, he come for the young and the old. And I'm the only mama they got.
Yeah.
And we work with children and families and mama ain't there for whatever reason. And it had nothing to do with baby. And I just decided that, I wasn't going to feed my children to the capitalist machine. and Black children do need something different in this world to thrive. And so when I say no, especially when it comes to like my children and things like that, I'm thinking a lot about, I want to be there and be present for them so that they can grow up healthy and strong and know that they are loved and know that they, weren't put aside for my career, because I'll blink and they'll be, someone literally told me this today, you'll blink and they'll be in high school, you'll blink, they'll be in college, and then you'll blink and they'll be like, I'm grown, I got my own business, and I'm just not ready for all of that. So my no's mean no. And, I definitely try to be present for my children, because I know that the world does not treat Black children well. And so it starts at home, me honoring them, respecting them, and showing them that they matter and that they're important.
Now that's amazing. That's amazing. That made me think back to something someone told me before. It's like the days are long, but the years are short. So you absolutely have to cherish. You have to cherish all those things. So here in a second, I have a couple of questions from the audience that I'm going to pose to you guys. But I do want to kind of tell our audience here on Facebook and YouTube to share this video, leave some comments, hit the like button, follow Memphis Urban League Young Professionals to kind of get more content like this. An awesome, huge thank you to our sponsors for this event. Gladys Wines, September Nail Salon, Simone & Co. Candles, and Gold Mine & Cocoa. We have some amazing little gifts for our panelists and a big giveaway for an audience member. So y'all are gonna really like this. I mean, y'all gonna like this stuff, I promise. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, so we will be ending here soon, but we have a few questions from the audience that I want to get y'all's take on. So one of the questions that we have from the audience that's kind of linked to our last question that we offered to you guys is, what inspired you to be in Memphis? Because I know a couple of you are transplants of Memphis. Right, Danielle, are you a transplant here? No, I didn't think you were, but I know Audrey and Ruby are transplants.
No, I was say Audrey from
Audrey,
Memphis.
Audrey, you're from Memphis? I don't know why I thought you were from
South Memphis all day, all night long.
Oh, come on, South Memphis.
I've been here since I was about 4 or 5.
Yes. I was like, oh,
yeah, I am a Memphis native.
Okay. I don't know what made me think you were from Atlanta.
Because I went to high school there.
Okay. Us Memphis folks, we love our high school. So it's like she didn't go to high school. She wasn't, or you went to where'd you go to school? Tell us your story.
So I am a Memphis native. I started out, like I said, I'm from South Memphis, went to South Side for the first year, but I was getting closer to my biological father and stepmother at the time, and I would spend summers in Atlanta. And so this was when like the great Atlanta migration was happening in like the early 90s. And so there were a lot of friends, distant relatives that were transitioning to Atlanta. And it was just something amazing for me to see Black people thriving. And I wanted to be a part of that at a very early age. And so I was one of those kids said, if I ever get a chance to leave Memphis, I'm gonna leave Memphis. I am never coming back here. And I actually did stay away from Memphis for quite a bit. I studied abroad. I've lived in Dallas. I've, lived up north, everywhere. And it wasn't until I was actually a member of the Dallas Young Professionals, YP. And so I was connecting and they were, oh, have you heard about the YP in Memphis? And, it was like things were starting to pull me back to Memphis, and I transitioned back to Memphis about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. So I love that. I always tell people Memphis should have been Atlanta.
If Delta
has so much potential. Memphis has had so much potential to be the Mecca of Blackness that Atlanta is today. But we'll get there with you fine folks helping us out.
For what it's worth, I like Memphis better than Atlanta. I live there. Memphis is still my favorite. Still my favorite. But that's just me. People
So,
are
I mean,
realer here for sure.
but that goes back to that question. What caused you or what inspires you to stay in Memphis and do public work in Memphis, you know, to get your feet wet in Memphis?
I'll jump in if it's okay. So I
Absolutely.
moved here. So I'm from rural Louisiana, like I shared. My hometown has about 16,000 people in it. I moved here from Denver, Colorado. So my best friend was reading Jet, and she was like, Memphis is the place to be. It's always on the list of single black women for real. She was like, you need to go there. It's going to be great. We'll get you a man. Because I didn't think I would get married. I thought I'd be a career woman, you know, have a dog and like exercise, you know, living the life.
Oh.
And I had like work opportunities across the country, and Memphis just really spoke to me. I came through here visiting, had some Corky's barbecue and saw Graceland, and I was like, this seems pretty nice. A few years, like during grad school. But like the work, you know, working in education is what brought me here. So I was a part of the big wave of folks who, you know, working in schools, etc. But what keeps me here is the people. Panels like this. I was in the Urban League of Young Professionals in Denver, you know, and entities like this always produce movers and shakers who, believe it or not, go across the country and make things better for people of color. They make things better for Black people, because even that Urban League, the guy who was like our president, our Ashley, is now CEO of the Urban League in Cincinnati, right? And I feel like he has good relationships with Cynthia Daniels. Like, I've seen him in pictures. I'm like, dude, how small is the world? So I say all that to say what has kept me in Memphis and made me fall in love with Memphis so much, I've moved here twice, is the people. I feel like everywhere I go, someone is always challenging me, like, you know, what is in the best interest of our city? What is in the best interest of Black people? It's not performative leadership. When people make mistakes, you know, people call you to the rug. And at the end of the day, people still believe like, hey, there's something better on the other side. No matter how hard things are, no matter what you're working on, people are very focused on what's possible, you know, for the future. And I think that I know that makes Memphis special, having lived other places. So
I love that. I love that. What about you, Danielle? From Memphis, staying here, keeping it rocking.
Yeah, so I was a part of a program called the Memphis Challenge when I was in high school, and it's led by Cassandra Webster. It was back then, it still is now. And the big pledge that we take as challengers is that we will take our talents, and it's for young Black high school students that are excelling, doing well. But we'll take our talents and we'll take them elsewhere, but we commit ourselves to bring our talents back home. That is a core part of it. And so it's crazy the things that you latch onto as a child, but that's something that I latched onto. So I left and I went to Louisiana State University, but I always knew, even when I went to LSU, I said, well, I'm coming back to Memphis. I was a challenger. And so I always knew that I was going to come back home. Now, as an adult, that continues to be in the background of my decision making, but not so much center. Now it's just that I really like big challenges. And so when you look at the work that I do just generally, I'm trying to find a big challenge and I'm trying to solve that challenge. And in Memphis, especially, I think we are a city of big challenges and big opportunities. And I want to be a part of creating something that is long lasting and tremendously impactful for the folks that live here. And so I keep showing up. And I think as long as I feel I will never claim I'm going to live here, retire here. I'll never claim that, because I believe that a city should always work to keep great talent in its community. But as long as I feel like I'm showing up with other people like y'all, and we're all like y'all, like, we can do this. We can create a community that's livable, that our kids are excited to be in. Like, as long as I see and I'm experiencing this work with those types of collaborative partners, I'm going to keep showing up and doing it. At any point in time, if Memphis gets stale and it becomes comfortable with the status quo, we're no longer a city of grit and grind, then I will do what I think every reasonable, talented person should do. And I will look for other opportunities elsewhere. So the city should absolutely continue to try to compete. And as long as the city's trying to compete, I'm going to be on the team trying to help make sure the city wins.
Well, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I know at Memphis Urban League Young Professionals, we are constantly trying to make sure we impact communities, make sure we bring on folks like y'all that can help us and show us the way to figure out what's great for professionals, what's great for our community work, our engagement, and everything else. We have a question from the audience that I think would be right up your alley, Ruby, of what to answer, right? So do you have any advice for Black mothers that may be looking to join the public sector? Now, they're already mothers and they've kind of already gotten in there. So what advice do you have for them looking to join?
Yes. So I'm all about the shameless plug. So the first thing I would say is you need to join some type of organization that is politically centered. Volunteer organizations, 501c3 organizations do incredible work, but because they tend to have a different focus than say a C4 organization, which is a political entity or, serving on a board or commission. And so the first thing I always invite people to do is find a community, a group that is political and join them. One, you can't possibly learn all the things. There's lots of relationships. Who knows who has done what? You got to give people respect. And when you're new to something and you're very passionate about it, picking that group and getting a group of people who are also passionate about whatever that issue is just a great starting place to make sure, one, you might be fired up about it, but then 6 months later, maybe not so much. So if you're part of a group, if your personal situation changes and you can't, be a super volunteer all the time, at least you're a part of something. So there are lots of groups. Moms Demand Action. I'm a part of the Tennessee Women's Political Caucus, the National Women's Political Caucus, of course, the Urban League. There are lots of organizations doing some type of advocacy, public engagement, civic engagement. And so I always encourage women to start there. The next thing is we have boards and commissions, and I'm sure Ms. Inez can speak to that, but we have lots of boards and commissions and just things that are happening where we need great leaders to serve. And so going, whether it's introducing yourself to a county commissioner or a city council person, but going on the government websites and even at the state level, reading and seeing what boards and opportunities are out there. I volunteer through the Biden-Harris Appoint Women Project. And so when we're getting ready to look for women for political appointments, you have to have kind of a specialty. Audrey's a good example. I can't do what she does, right? You can't fake that. And so we need women with a variety of skills. We need women who are scientists, technologists. We need communicators. We need educators. We need lots of women with lots of different backgrounds serving in all these positions. Again, we can't talk about parity, especially around gender, race, until we have women with the skills serving in these positions. And then the last thing I'll say is just have a passion for it long term. You don't have to necessarily be the person out in front with the megaphone on social media. Maybe that's not your ministry, but whatever your ministry is, do it open-heartedly, do it focused on change, and do the best that you can. Because at the end of the day, these problems existed before us. We are inheriting systemic oppression. We are a part of a country that has a 400-year history around oppressing people of color, Black people. We are an enslaved people. And so when you talk about that work and really, putting progressive policies that take care of marginalized people on the books, there's just a lot of hands that need to be a part of that, pushing that sled in the right direction. So, if running for office is not your thing, that's fine. But please, be a part of an organization, a dues paying member. Paying member, even if it's $5, join something, put your money and your time towards a group, an effort, and start there and just know that that's enough, because we do have a lot of, people who are apathetic, who aren't able to get involved, physically, monetarily. And so, you can make a difference in all of those ways, and it matters.
Now that's great advice. Great advice. I think it's amazing to know that even in that part of things, in that part of industry, in that part of the sector, getting involved is the first step. Get involved in some sort of way. Getting involved with these different organizations. When you go off to college, it's one of the big things. I was a college rep, and freshmen would always come in well, how do I like the school? It's join an organization, find one that meets what you like, because if you don't know people and meet people, it's going to be the most awful college experience you're going to have, but everyone else is going to be having fun because they know people. So that's phenomenal. That's awesome. And I know I see it in the comment, being a dues paying member is always
Look, I had to hit y'all with that. Listen,
you gotta
the
pay your
movement cannot
dues.
run for free.
The
These things
movement
take
cannot.
MONEY, baby. And all them $5 and $10, they add up. You know, you can't say I deserve and need transformational change, but you know the way my coin's set up, you know, because people are, let me tell you, evil is on its job. I'll just say that.
Yes. Period. So we go. That's definitely it. So okay. So we have another question here, and this question I'm gonna pose it to Danielle. What are some of your favorite activities in the city for Joseph and Malcolm X?
Yeah, Malcolm is bad, so I try to do as little with Malcolm as possible. But just being honest, he is a 10-month puppy and he is all puppy. But with Malcolm, I live downtown, and so we generally do lots of walks up and down Main Street. Sometimes I take him down by the river. I take him to a dog park. With Joey, we can do any number of things. So we might go visit a museum. We might go to a park. I like picnics. He likes picnics. He likes to dance. And so if there's any opportunity for us to go listen to some music, we'll do that. I take him on Beale Street during the daytime. It's actually a fun thing to do with the kid during the day. He likes going to the trampoline parks around town. I mean, he's a 6-year-old kid, y'all. So where a 6-year-old can go, he's ready and he's down to go and do it.
That's phenomenal. What about you, Audrey? You have an older child, so you have to tell us. I mean, I'm sure you probably don't do as much now.
So we're just grateful for the privilege that he comes to visit every once in a while now, because that is a perk of having an adult child, is that, you know, you don't have to tend to them as much. You tend to them because you worry about them, especially in this political climate. I worry about him all the time, but with Tim, we like to travel. So it is very seldom that we're going to stay in Memphis an entire month. Even through the pandemic, we were still traveling because it's just my belief. I was so stuck in Memphis growing up as a kid. I feel like if I had known other places sooner in life, you know, all those exposure points would have meant so much more. So we try and give Tim as many exposure points as possible. Being in the city, we have memberships to the Children's Museum, to the zoo, to mostly all the museums. Mainly because paying memberships is important. These residual sources of income are important to businesses. So we are dues paying members. I think it changes the dynamic of going to the zoo for him, because it's more of an enjoyment and I can absorb things. It becomes more of a sensory type thing, instead of we're going to the zoo, we're going to spend 4 hours, you're going to go through here, now hurry up, let's go. And so, you know, we could go to the zoo and he could only, you know, look at the lions for the day and be ready to go. And so he's able to enjoy that. And it just becomes more of an educational experience, and we're on his time and he's not on my time. So, I mean, there are amazing things to do within the city, but my husband is very intricate in Timothy's life. So they spend a lot of time together, you know, if it's going to run errands or, you know, just things like that. So we have our roles in his life. And so it is just finding things and allowing them to find things sometimes.
Oh, I love that. Allowing them to find things. And earlier, you being on his times where they can soak it up and enjoy the experience. That's so key and so phenomenal. Like I'll take my children to the Children's Museum or something, and they find one thing and they're so excited about it, and they jump to the next thing, right? And then like 2 seconds later, they go back to the last thing. It's like, but time, you know, you're looking at your watch. It's like, oh, do we have time? But when they have that opportunity to just kind of grow, it kind of grow right in front of you in those experiences. So that's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. So my time with you guys is just about done. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was I mean, it taught me a whole bunch. It taught me a whole bunch with two smaller children. And to hear everything that you guys do on a daily basis with your children is just, I'm blown away, completely blown away. I don't know how you do it. I'm gonna try to find me a good flow, because right now I'll be like frantic all day long. Frantic all day long. I think that we're going to, well, before I let you guys go, let me thank our sponsors once again. Gladys Wine, September Nail Salon, Simone and Co. Candles, and Gold Mine and Cocoa. Thank you so much for your products and donations. Our panelists are going to absolutely love them. I'm telling you, like, it's for real. Y'all know Gold Mine and Cocoa. They love like all the stationery things. And they gave you some. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Gladys Wine's local wine company. I mean, I don't know if y'all have had it before, but the brother is great with the wine here in Memphis. Okay. Simone and Co. Candles. Oh my goodness. This stuff it's fragrant. It fills the room like instantly. It's beautiful. September Nail Salon, of course. Her stuff is absolutely perfect. And I love that they're all local, all here in Memphis. You can check them out on social media, find them and everything else. Thank you again, you all, for joining this panel discussion. Thank you so much from Memphis Urban League Young Professionals. And I got a word to do something. So thank you so much for watching here for Memphis Urban League Young Professionals. To our panelists, we just want you guys to give us your final comments, kind of some lasting advice that we can share out to other mothers in public sectors or in private sectors, and kind of how they can navigate motherhood in Memphis.
I guess I can go first.
I was gonna say, does it matter who goes first?
Yeah, I can go first. I will most certainly say this: keep an open mind. I read a comment today that said, if you think parenting is easy, you're doing it wrong. There is no right or wrong way to parenting. Trust me, we're all flailing around and learning as we go. Like I said, I have a 21-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I learn something new all the time. We don't have all the answers, and our mothers didn't have all the answers when we came up, but look at yourselves. You turned out to be wonderful people anyway. So, just take moments to learn from experiences as they occur, and don't beat yourself up when you feel like, you've done something wrong. Trust me, I've done some wrong parenting things, some things that I wish could have gone a different way. But you can't labor and beat yourself up about stuff. You got to keep moving.
I'll add very similar to that. Driving my son home from school today, we had the dog in the back seat, and my son was just talking with him back there, and he's like, you have the best mommy ever. She takes you on walks and she gives you treats. This was literally today. She takes you on walks and she gives you treats and she buys you toys. You couldn't ask for a better mommy. And I was just listening to him, and I had to say, Joy, that was so sweet, because he's talking about it with the dog. But I'm constantly being reminded from people around me, like, Danny, you're doing a good job. Like, don't be so hard on yourself as a mom. And Joey is very, very happy. And so hearing like his little basic standards for measuring me as a good pet mom, which I'm not that great as a pet mom, I was like, I think I'm constantly just being reminded. And that's just another example that you are doing a good job. So to Audrey's point, don't beat up on yourself. And really, I'm talking to myself when I say it. Realize that when you show up every day and you give your best, and your best falls short of perfect, well, you're not perfect, and you're still amazing and exceptional, and you should be proud of what it is that you're doing. And you're going to look up and your kid's going to be an adult, and you made that. So be proud of what you're doing and what you're pouring into your kid.
That's beautiful. Ruby?
Ooh, social media will rob you of happiness as a parent. You just have to really remember it doesn't matter, there was a period where I cared about, okay, my daughter's clothes, her hair, her this, her that. There's no, as Danielle and Audrey have said, there's no one way to do it. You don't have to be perfect. None of us are, but social media is different. When I talk to like women who are a part of my tribe, because I have a lot of women who are older, I turn to them for advice, and they have lots of empathy for mothering at a time where you have social media curating, showing you the highlights of other folks' lives. And so the advice I like to extend is, it's just that, social media is good for what it's good for, but spend time with your children, get to know your children, be present for your children. And then in terms of like the work that we do in public service, it's an extension of my love of my family and my children. I work hard to be a leader that the same way I show up for my family, I want to show up for others. The same realness that I bring, I want to give that to my children so that they are authentic leaders serving. And so, don't let social media have you out here. That's one piece of advice. And then the other thing is just build a life and a family and a situation that you're proud of, and that's the best way to inspire other women to join movements that are really hard, to be leaders, because we have to prove that it is possible. So thank you for having us.
That's amazing. That is such great and perfect advice. Such great and perfect advice. I just want to leave everyone with thank you so much for tuning in to Power Players, Black Mothers on the Move in Memphis. There were so many amazing gems dropped tonight that just should put everyone in a whole new mindset and better frame of being a mother in Memphis, as well as impacting our communities and impacting everything that we do here. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to our civic committee. And hey, Raina. Hey, Dominique. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. My name is Dominique DeFries, and I am the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Co-Chair along with Raina Henderson. And we just want to thank you all for tuning in and give a big shout out to our panelists tonight, Danielle Inez, Audrey Willis, and Ruby Paldenis. They were dropping gems all night, so make sure, if you didn't see the whole thing, to go back and watch it on our YouTube channel or on Facebook Live, rewatch it whenever you want. We also want to give a big shout out to Asha and Manuel, our great moderator for this evening. So thank you. And as Asha mentioned, we had some wonderful sponsors, and they were able to provide a small goodie for one of our listeners tonight. So we were looking at the chats and we did a random draw. And Maria Powell, you are the winner of a little goodie from our sponsors. So we will be in touch with you over Facebook Messenger to get that to you, as well as our panelists. We will be in touch to get you all your wonderful goodies from our sponsors. And now Raina is going to close us out with some last minute words. And Raina, you're on mute.
Sorry, everyone. Yes, thank you, everyone, for tuning into the event. Again, we are Memphis Urban League Young Professionals, and Dominique and I are the co-chairs of the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Committee. We have so many great events planned for this year, so please make sure you visit our website. You stay tuned. We have Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. Follow us on LinkedIn. Whatever your social media platform of choice is. But we're really excited to host more of these. So stay tuned, and we look forward to getting new members. So check us out.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining.